Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Wilfrid. I'm the president of the Gaudeamus Educators of Southern New England, and I have a few choral directors around the state with me to have a roundtable discussion about how groups around the state and the area are reopening in the pandemic. So the objective of this discussion is to help choral directors see how musical organizations of all age levels across Connecticut are handling the pandemic, how they're able to continue spreading the joy of music making, and also what the reopening process has looked like to them. So you'll hear how schools, community choirs, church choirs, children's choirs, and more are adapting to current times. And hopefully viewers will be able to take these stories and this advice back to their own schools and organizations and help guide them through their own reopening process. And if nothing else, to not feel like you're the only music director going through all of this. We are all in the same boat, navigating through these turbulent times. And sometimes knowing that you're not the only one dealing with these issues is help enough to stay afloat. So I have three good friends of mine, three renowned music educators around the state. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Jacqueline, why don't we start with you?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Sugrue-Tait, and I'm a general music and chorus teacher in the Westport Public Schools, and I'm also one of the 4 conductors of the Fairfield County Children's Choir, which is a group of about 350 kids in grades 4 through 12 that rehearse once or twice a week, and our director and founder is John Noyes. And to begin on a positive note, talking about FCCC, we had very successful Zoom auditions in June. So if anyone's looking to do auditions, I do have some advice on things that went well and things that didn't. And in the end, I think we auditioned about 240 kids via Zoom and only had a couple of glitches. And it was really wonderful. So I can give some information on that if you'd like. Thank you.
Great. I made a note of that. We also have Gabriel Lofvall. Dr. Gabriel Lofvall, you want to introduce yourself to us?
Hello. Thank you, Greg. My name is Gabriel Lofvall, and I am the Director of Music Ministry for St. Patrick's St. Anthony Church in downtown Hartford. That's my full-time job. And I also I'm the Artistic Director for Joyful Noise, or better known as Chorus Angelicus, which is a children's choir school based in northwestern Connecticut in Torrington. And I also direct the men's choir of Connecticut Children's Chorus, which is based at the Hart School of Music here in Hartford, Connecticut. West Hartford, actually, technically.
Thank you. And Roberta, last but not least.
Yes, my name is Roberta Verbyla, and I am currently retired from Bristol Public Schools, teaching choral music and vocal music. I am the executive director of Main Street Children's Choir, formerly Main Street Singers. We have children from grades 2 to 6, although with virtual instruction, we will go older this fall season. And we are a community choir based in New Britain. We draw from the surrounding towns of New Britain, the central Connecticut region. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And this whole video was Roberta's idea at one of our KESNE meetings because she is our current recording secretary. As I mentioned, my name is Greg Wilfrid. I teach elementary school choir, general music, and jazz band in Plainville, Connecticut. And I also direct the Plainville Choral Society, which is an adult community choir that was celebrating its 50th anniversary last year, but was interrupted halfway through. And my group features people ages low 20s to 90. So mostly in the higher age level. So we're kind of trying to cover all of the different age levels with the people that I've asked to be here today virtually. So we're going to go around it's not really a round table, it's more of a grid, but we're going to go around and have people share what their experiences were with their groups since the shutdown, how or to whatever extent they were able to reopen, and what it's looking like now. We are currently recording on Tuesday, August 25th. So we are all just about to be at the beginning of what would be our seasons. So I'm curious what every group's plans are to reopen as it stands, or what you've been able to do over the past 6 months. So Jacqueline, if you don't mind, I will start with you.
Sure, thank you. So you were talking about the 50th anniversary of your group. The FCCC, Fairfield County Children's Choir, was supposed to have our 25th anniversary concert, and that was going to be at Carnegie Hall. in May, but obviously the shutdown happened. So we continued our rehearsals, but they were via Zoom. And it was scary because we thought the kids wouldn't show up, but I'm so grateful. My group of the whole ensemble is 107 kids, and we met instead of every Wednesday night, we did every other. And each time there were 80 to 95 kids on Zoom with us. And so the conductors helped each other because it was a lot of kids at once, as opposed to when we're rehearsing in person. And so during those rehearsals, we did do some of the rep to keep it up. And just in case things opened, I think at that point we weren't really sure the timing of everything still. But we also switched the focus to like getting to know each other. So we would do a Kahoot quiz at the end with choir trivia, or we would have like 2 truths and a lie about the conductors, and the kids would play, or they played musical categories. And so there was always a game at the end of our rehearsal. And something really cool that John Noyes did with the chamber singers was he had guest artists come in. And Mr. Jacobson he's the conductor of the Bridgeport Symphony, and his wife Aoife O'Donovan, they came one day and the kids got to interview them and perform over Zoom for them and vice versa. And he had SM6 come, and the kids are really excited about that. So guest artists is one way that I think John really helped keep those kids engaged. And then, we were just really impressed with how many kids still came to choir. That really told us that they need us, even if we feel very distant from them at this time. So something else we did was we created a virtual choir performance of Bridge Over Troubled Water and dedicated to frontline workers, and it was featured on News Channel 12. So that got the choir into we got our audience in a different way, right? And then they actually took, I'm gonna cry, donations to Bridgeport Hospital's COVID fund, which is actually where my grandmother was, and she passed away. So they made donations in her name, and that was a really special community thing. And then also the 4 conductors of the choir, we drove to homes of the 20 kids who were seniors who graduated from the choir. We drove to their homes with masks on and stayed far away, but we did hand them flowers for their graduation and a bag that had their awards in it for their senior awards, and other little gifts in there. So we got to see them one last time before they went off to college, whatever that looks like. And I think they really enjoyed the fact that we were all parked in front of their house, honking our horns and congratulating them on something so special. And do you want me to talk about the reopening strategy as well? Okay, so as we know, it's such a difficult time for everyone, and I've been thinking a lot about what it's doing to the children. And so we are deciding to reopen, obviously via Zoom right now in September. We're going to reopen because the kids are craving some type of normalcy, and if even just choir on Wednesday nights is something consistent for them that was similar to a year ago, then we're going to try and give that to them. So we're going to follow what all of the research is saying in the CDC guidelines. And for right now, because our group is so large, 340 kids, there's really nowhere we can go safely. So it is going to be Zoom, and then we'll just continue to reevaluate. And what we did was we sent out to the families 3 options. So option 1 is what we're following now, Zoom. And then option 2 is perhaps in small groups at the Klein instead of at the schools, because at the Klein, the kids could sit very far apart from each other and be facing the same way, and we would only have one of the ensembles every week go there, but we are not there yet. We just have that, hopefully in the future coming up. And then also, as we know, there's outdoors, which is safer than indoors, but there's a time limit on that because of the weather. So we've just been studying a lot of different models, and right now, like I said, what we've come up with is just completely distance, just because there are so many kids, and as we know about singing and the aerosols and all that. But we are going to shift our focus. We're still going to do a lot of the games and the fun, getting to know you kinds of things, which was actually enlightening for me. I feel like I did get to know the kids in a different way and a lot better. I feel closer to them now than just rehearsing the repertoire. So moving on, that's something to keep in mind for myself. But I forget what I was saying. But we are still we're going to rehearse rep for the winter, whatever that concert is going to look like, which we also have 3 plans for. We're going to rehearse the rep as best as we can via Zoom. So that's where we seem to be.
Very cool. A couple things that you mentioned that I loved were also things that I found when I was teaching distance for my school, is that you can learn a lot more about your students when you're not just rehearsing repertoire or doing music stuff the whole time. In a way, it was almost liberating. The way the town of Plainville had their elementary school specials work was we were doing a lot more social time. We had assignments for children to do, but when we had our one-on-one video time as specialists, it was mostly for social time, just to talk to children. And it was amazing how much I needed to do that, how much I didn't realize I needed to just talk to children about not even necessarily music. There was a family of foxes that moved on a porch down the road from me. And I told so many students about that because that was the excitement that we had. So I love that you shared that. I also love that you mentioned doing something for your graduating seniors, because in a group like Fairfield Children's Chorus or like Chorus Angelicus that Gabriel directs, some children have been there since they were 5, 6, since they were little, and that's mostly what they know. And I can only imagine how difficult it must have been to put in 12, 13, 15 years into an organization and see for 15 years the graduating seniors get to experience their last concert, their last hurrah, this and that, and then to just have there be nothing you can do about it. So I'm glad you guys were able to accommodate those students in that way. Gabriel, I will pass it off to you if you can talk to us a little bit about what Joyful Noise and Connecticut Children's Chorus has been able to do, and even if it's relevant to what your church choir has been able to do over this time.
Yeah, I think that because I end up working with singers ages 5 through 85, really, through all my different organizations, it's been quite interesting because each organization took a completely different route when faced with the pandemic. So it was the week of March 11th. I remember our last Sunday here with the semblance of a choir was March 15th. So I'm going to talk quickly about each one of them. So church, we have 3 different chorus. We have a female choir, a male choir, and a mixed choir, which suddenly, they came to a screeching halt because of the pandemic. And because of the nature of the church focused much more in still serving its parishioners through liturgy, through the creation of content for them to watch. So the church quickly invested heavily in installing a live streaming services. So we had a great camera, we had a great system, we are hooked to the internet, and we can live stream through all the platforms, our website and YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook Live. So we became immediately present to the people, but the choral music suffered in a way because the choirs are not there. So we continued with some of the professional singers as soloists or cantors, and my assistant and myself playing the organ and the piano. And then as time went by, we got a little more fanciful, and we were able to, as we felt comfortable, put together quartets of different singers so as to allow the professional singers. We have a team of 12 professionals here. So to try to honor them and to have them be able to continue working, we were able to create a pseudo choral music ensemble, like a small ensemble, and that has been very positive at a level because people still hear choir music. I do feel for the volunteers because they don't really have an outlet anymore, save for meeting in a Zoom setting and staying in touch socially. But they still enjoy being able to hear choir music one on a part. And we're doing that every weekend, and it's all available on YouTube if you just want to go and search St. Patrick's St. Anthony. And we're very proud of that. But it's just such a different approach from what Jackie just told us about the Fairfield Children's Chorus. So going to the children's choir scene, we were very lucky, like the FCC, because we were able to continue. We went immediately into a Zoom platform, and we continued rehearsals pretty much like Jackie described. We actually continued on our regular twice a week level. We shortened the rehearsals because I think we all agree that rehearsals on Zoom are of a different nature. They really become lecture style presentations. But I think if you really brainstorm as a music educator, you can get to do so much. And it's quite amazing because we get to learn so much from each other. You get to learn so much from your own students. You really can push the boundaries. And I worked on repertoire. I was able to convince 80% of them to sing for each other at the Zoom sessions, and it was wonderful. It was suddenly this paradise that opens to you, because the least expected kids would suddenly sing and you would hear their voices. We also are extremely lucky to have a junior choir conductor. Greg, you used to be our junior choir conductor a long time ago. Now it's Andrew Skinner, Andrew is the music teacher at the middle school in Torrington. And he is very gifted technologically speaking, and he was able to put together wonderful virtual choirs, really high level, beautifully crafted. So we created 3 of those, and we are presently putting together the 4th one to kind of like open the year with this virtual choir. Now to shift to my other group, Connecticut Children's Chorus, we were not that lucky there in that we were not given the opportunity to create virtual choirs, but we still continued Zoom rehearsals with the kids. And pretty much like Jackie said, I really used all the palette of opportunities that I have at hand. I encouraged the kids to create individual projects, to send me recordings of the music that they were working on. Some of them actually that found themselves comfortable with technology were able to produce multi-track recordings and create harmony with themselves. And that was amazing, because again, you see so many things that otherwise we were not aware that the kids can do these things. And guests was really a lifesaver. I was lucky to bring in some conductors that have written music for Connecticut children's choirs. With Chorus Angelicus, we had Philip Stopford, which is an incredible composer of church music. He came and visited the kids. He had written a piece for the kids, and we premiered a piece of his last year. So he joined us for a rehearsal. We invited some former teachers, and that really helped kind of fill the time and allow the kids to feel more comfortable with the platform. Looking ahead into the fall, we are also going to reopen at the virtual level. We strongly believe that it's not safe to go back together. Chorus Angelicus is much smaller than Fairfield, the children's chorus, but still it's not safe to meet in person. So we will continue with personal individual projects, having the kids sing a song or prepare any kind of musical or artistic expression if they are comfortable. And most of them give us the permission to broadcast it, and we send it in our newsletters, we post it on YouTube. So we allow them to express themselves, and that has been quite successful. And we will continue to put together virtual choirs, and our concerts will be on virtual platforms. They are going to be Facebook Live events. So Chorus Angelicus is well known for having an investiture concert at the beginning of each year, in which the kids are promoted from choir to choir, and that will happen at the virtual level. And we have hired a technical person who's going to facilitate all this to happen properly.
Thanks, Gabriel. One of the things that I love that both you and Jacqueline touched on is that we're not on our own for all of this. So the fact that you were able to have folks help out with technology, because I think you guys are in the same boat as me, I would not have been able to do a lot of the technological stuff when this started. But since everyone's in the same boat, you were lucky enough to have Andrew help out with the tech side at Chorus Angelicus. And one of the things I learned working with you in Chorus Angelicus is that collaboration always makes things easier. So I'm glad that you folks have all the experience of having guest artists come in to help out and to reach out to other people that you know that might have more technological experience, or just be able to use online groups. Facebook has a million different groups for music educators, and there are tons of different ways you can find out about all the different technological things you can add to your choral experience. So I'm glad that you folks have both had that experience of having other people help you, because it's not just up to one person to solve the problem on their own. And Roberta, would you like to speak to what Main Street has been doing?
Yes. So since shutting down March 12th, we rescheduled our spring community choral festival once. We had planned to do it in December in a modified form, actually not a spring concert, but more of a winter concert, but including the community. We ordinarily have between 35 and perhaps 40 singers in the fall, but that can swell to 75 to 80 in the spring when we try to do some satellite choirs with schools in the area. Our staff goes into the school and does a mini choral rehearsal 4 times, preparing them for the concert. And then they come in and they join us for that spring performance. We have had guest conductors. We contracted last spring with Rob Hugh, who was marvelous. Did a great job with the kids, and they enjoyed it very much. This spring, we had intended to have Ellen Gilson-Voth, who was really excited to work with us, but naturally that didn't happen. So it looks unlikely that we're going to be able to sing together indoors in December as well. We have been reaching out to families monthly, on a monthly basis. At first, we got some videos from the kids, as you mentioned before, of them singing a song and sharing that. We asked if we could share it with other people. Some of them said yes, some of them said no. But with registration now in process, we'll likely reach out a bit more. We've had numerous board meetings to develop a reopening strategy. We're blessed with a fabulous board, very committed, very dedicated, definitely a group effort, and any change in curriculum has to be voted on and approved. We decided upon reopening with our client base that it was not probable that they would be successful with a Zoom-type virtual choir. Many of our children are younger than 4th grade. The majority are younger than 4th grade. We have a small percentage 4th and 5th grade, a few 6th graders, and then our age tops out. So our directors, and we have 2 excellent young ladies that are taking the helm right now, they decided that we would offer one-to-one virtual instruction with an opportunity to do small group singing based on enrollment. So we're going to offer instruction on Thursdays in voice and guitar, believe it or not, because you could sing with a guitar. And then on Tuesdays, we're going to offer instruction in keyboard, with the understanding that anyone that takes piano or keyboard lessons will also sing with the group on Thursdays. So to make sure that we're compliant with our grants that we've been granted for this current choral year, we have to make sure we're servicing all of our groups. And very many of our client base, they don't have devices that they're able to use easily. They don't have adequate devices or sound equipment or things like that. They often have come from a single family home, very many of our children, and the only time that parents can help them with anything online is before school, before they go to work. So we thought that this would work best, and we're really looking forward to offering that, as a stopgap measure to get us through COVID and on to the other side. So we did a random sampling of parents, and only one was keeping their child home. The rest of them had various reactions to how well do you think they did online? Do you think they would do well with an online music experience? And we had various reactions with that. Some of the parents said, yes, absolutely. It would be fine. And some of the parents said, honestly, they need so much direction, and it just was difficult for us. So I think a lot of the parents also are waiting to see how much of an obligation the online business is going to be with school. Most schools in our service area are hybrid, so they go in a few days a week, they're online the rest. And We have some extremely strong partnerships in the community. So we've partnered with YWCA of Greater New Britain, and we've also partnered with Polish Language School Choir. So we're hoping that by offering our program in that manner, once they know what they're doing there, that we're going to be able to increase our registration and move forward. So we're really excited about this school year, and our directors are very enthusiastic to continue. I also shared, in closing, I also shared the document that our directors came up with to both of you, if you're interested, and to Greg, you too. I thought it might be helpful to other teachers. They worked pretty hard on it, and I'm pleased with what they came up with. So that's my bit.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. One thing that's always impressed me with the Main Street Children's Choir is the grace with which you change and adapt yourselves, because their outreach program has been going on for a long time, and you folks always seem to be looking forward and trying to find a way to help your group survive with the changing needs of all of your different kids, which is always super impressive. So I'm not surprised you folks are so well on your way in this. And one thing you also mentioned was just with all of these community groups, at least around the state of Connecticut, virtually every community choir, children's choir, you get kids from all different walks of life, all different towns. I know that's true for Chorus Angelicus. I know that's true for the Main Street Children's Choir. I know that's true for Fairfield. I don't have any advice to offer on that end, but everyone's on the same page. It's very difficult to try to meet the needs of every single person in your organization. It sounds like everyone's doing the best they can, but it's certainly a challenge for all of us. I'll speak briefly to what my community choir is doing, since Gabriel touched on it with his church choir, but the needs for groups not involving children are certainly different than groups of children. So my choral society, as I mentioned, we were going to be doing our 50th anniversary concert last year. We simply just had to stop right around the same time you all were talking about, that third week of March. We just had to stop, and given that a lot of my group is in the older age demographic, or at the very least the more susceptible, there's just not a safe alternative to rehearse. So in some cases, the best thing you can do is just wait, I believe. And I love that Fairfield is looking for bigger venues. The Klein Theater in Bridgeport is where you folks perform all your concerts, some of your concerts. So they're looking for other venues. It just becomes difficult with a community choir that's housed in a church, because we end up having to go by what the church is allowing. So in some cases, you just have to, we can't rehearse. As you were mentioning, even with different families with technological needs, when we're working with adults who with various levels of awareness of technology, it just becomes very difficult. So in our case, we took the route of just waiting. We actually have a board meeting tomorrow night to figure out what we're going to do for the future. But since I'm also a public school teacher in the town that I have the community choir, I'm often erring towards the side of what the schools are doing. So our older schools, the middle school and the high schools, they have a plan for opening some kind of choir. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but the elementary level, it's going to be next to impossible. My elementary school choir is 90 kids most years, and there just simply wouldn't be a way to do that, especially since mine meets outside of school. Some schools, some elementary schools have it meet one day a week. Some have it meet during this random 20-minute block another day. In different districts, even in, since my district is so small, bigger districts, it's way more difficult to find a way to align all of that. So in some cases, there's just not much you can do. And so I found other ways. It sounds like what you folks are doing with your Zoom meetings, keeping things a little less driven towards repertoire, but more just getting to know your children, having more fun musical experiences, bringing in guest artists. I love all of these ideas. There's certainly not a right or wrong way to go about all of this, but there's a number of different ways. And I've gotten lots of ideas from you three in the last 20 whatever minutes, as well as from other friends over the past few months. One question that came to mind, it's okay if you don't have an answer to this, but so in mid-March, I had my adult community choir working on our repertoire for our 50th anniversary, and we're going to continue that whenever we start. My children's choir was about halfway through their semester of learning a new repertoire. So I don't have an answer, but I'm curious, for folks, if you were in the middle of learning new repertoire, are you continuing with what you had started partway through, knowing that some kids knew it? Do you plan on starting fresh? Have you even thought that far ahead in your lives? It's okay if no one has an answer to that. That was just something I thought of, if anyone wants to speak to that.
I can answer if you want. with my two groups, with the Connecticut Children's Chorus and Chorus Angelicus, we were in the middle of preparing very specific concerts. Connecticut Children's Chorus was an Americana concert style with the bluegrass mass and some other, American genres. And definitely that concert will be postponed indefinitely until, there is a vaccine, until we can all go back to the concert hall and do it together. So that seemed to work. And actually exactly the same happens with Chorus Angelicus. We were caught in about to give the concerts of our spring season. Actually, I think COVID hit 2 weeks before our first big concert, which was the premiere of local composer Josh Hummel's American cantata. All seems to be very American. And again, we are just postponing the spring. Hopefully, we can have it in the spring of 2021, although it really looks unlikely. I mean, it's things are moving very slow. So it might be that we just keep postponing. But my idea is to, when things reopen, whenever that is to happen, we will take the same repertoire that we were working on.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else have anything to share in that regard?
So I think what I would do for Fairfield County Children's Choir, we are moving forward with the winter rep, but I don't know how likely it is that we'll be having that concert. But I'm thinking of like what I'm going to do with my students, even in classes outside of chorus. And by the way, like Greg said, my school is not having chorus for the elementary kids right now. I think I would probably take some of what we were working on and bring it over, just because I don't want everything to be new for them. I think it'll turn them off, especially trying to learn in this capacity. But then maybe a couple of maybe seasonal pieces to keep it current and relevant. So I would do probably, like Gabriel said, what they were working on, and then maybe infuse a little bit of new material. I'm not sure how well it will go, but I'm just thinking a combination might be nice for them.
Cool, thanks. Roberta, do you have any idea about what Main Street's plan is?
Yeah, I agree. It has to be a bit of the familiar and a bit of the new. And there's certain pieces that our choir has sung probably almost every year as either an opener or a closer, as part of tradition of the choir. And we'll certainly, try to keep those going.
Very cool, thank you. I asked you three specifically because you all have a very positive outlook on things, even when things don't seem like there's a lot to be positive about. So this next question our closing question might seem kind of redundant, because you've already shown us a lot of positive things you're looking forward to. But as a way to wrap up on a positive note, is there anything that you are looking forward to for this current school year or this current concert season with your groups that people might take some inspiration from as we're all navigating this crazy time? And I guess for consistency's sake, Jacqueline, I'll let you go first.
I think I was ready to go first. Something that I think you had mentioned, and Gabriel, I don't know, I think you all probably mentioned it. I have really enjoyed listening to kids on Zoom who maybe wouldn't have been comfortable soloing, like Gabriel was saying, in front of the live group. Also, to their benefit, they can record things and then share their screen or share it with us. And so that has been a silver lining. And then I saw a quote on Ruth Dwyer's Facebook a couple days ago, so I thought it was perfect that you asked that question. This is from Kelly Walsh of Chorus America, and she says, "If a choir is only about singing and performing, there will be no choir for a while. If a choir is about teaching and learning, growing, connecting, cultural exploration and transmission, and innovating, we will find a way to have choir." So.
Love it. Gabriel, would you like to add on?
I can echo every word that Jackie said. That's wonderful. We have twin brains. It's a terrible time. Let's face it. So sadness it oozes out of all of us. I mean, our lives are just upended and everything has changed. But the Zoom meetings, to me, are priceless. And even, when faced with Zoom meetings, many kids fell through the cracks because either, like we've mentioned before, their families cannot afford, a device for them to use. And even in that circumstance, community came to help. And the Chorus Angelicus community is an example. The kids called each other. I kept saying, such and such has not shown up for 2 times in a row. I would text them and I would be ignored. And then the kids themselves would kind of like hold each other accountable. And that was beautiful to see. So there was a big sense of community in action. But also, and again, we are repeating ourselves a little bit, to see some of them who were completely shy in the rehearsal environment suddenly shine, and to see the opposite. Some of the ones that would always raise their hands so they would be always ready to audition for a solo were not comfortable, were really very challenged by the virtual setting. I think they are learning so much about that. And then with the virtual choir, I know that virtual choirs are a little bit of a pebble in the shoe for many choral conductors, and it's not really my favorite form of expression. They are extremely labor intensive, and the final result, even though it is beautiful, it's not really, it's something artificial. But still, in the process, I think the kids learn so much. To have to record their own part by themselves and figure out the technology and be listening to the pre-recorded accompaniment on their ears, and then have, that is really, it's priceless. They're spending hours doing this. So they're getting a little bit of the taste of the real world if they are going to become recording artists or just performing artists. You all know, you're all performers. Making recording takes, you have to do countless takes of each song until you get it right. So there's a lot to be said about that kind of details. And again, we're always taught when we study, when we go to college, that recording yourself is the best thing to do, but under normal circumstances we never have the time to do it. Now, because of the pandemic, we are actually listening to ourselves many times, and in church is the best example. Everything is being broadcast, and immediately I go back to my office here and I listen to what I just did, and I'm learning so much about my own performance habits and things that I could definitely get better at. So that's my, like Jackie said, the silver lining is a little bit there. I don't like this. I want it to be over. But the reality is that it is here for stay some more time. We have to be realistic, listen to the experts, listen to the scientists. And we are not singing together anytime soon. So let's enjoy this. And thank you, Jackie, for that quote. That's amazing. That's exactly what we have to be focusing on teaching culture, on teaching, and on learning from ourselves and from the kids.
Love it. Thanks, Gabriel. And Roberta?
Yes, I take away most from personal stories. And we had one child, an 11-year-old, always a little bit on the outside. And for motivating the children, I sent them an a cappella version of Fireflies by Owl City, because to me, it's just magical. And I wanted them to feel some kind of magic, even though everything was kind of gloom and doom. And this child had a fake microphone, wasn't plugged into anything, in her bedroom. She dressed up for the video. She sang her little heart out. She sounded amazing. And they did it with an iPhone or something like that. And they sent me the video. And it just was so heartwarming to see this child kind of just blossom. And I've never heard her do that before. And it just was amazing. So these opportunities present themselves even when things are kind of dark and glum. And I'm happy for that.
And I'm happy that you shared all of that. All of these things are things that we've heard a bunch before, but I always feel like I'm hearing it again for the first time whenever you folks bring these up. So thank you all for doing that. One quick thing on behalf of KESNE, since we are wrapping up here. If you found this useful, that is wonderful. Thank you for sticking it out for the entire time. I'm very tempted to call this video "Sadness Just Oozes Out of Us," Gabriel Lofvall, but I don't think I'll use that as the working title for this video. If you enjoyed this, KESNE will be hosting a workshop on Saturday, September 26th at noon. It will be a virtual webinar hosted by the folks who founded Decolonizing the Music Room. That's founded by Brandy Waller-Pace, and this workshop will feature Lorelei Batislong. They are an amazing organization. It's a nonprofit organization using research, training, and discourse to help music educators develop critical practices and center Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian voices, knowledge, and experiences in order to challenge the historical dominance of white, Western, European, and American music narratives and practices. So there'll be more information about that available to you on our website, which is KESNE.org, or on our Facebook page, the Kodai Educators of Southern New England. Hope that you found something useful in all of this. If nothing else, we have bunches of positivity. Even as sadness oozes out of us, you can also see that positivity can also simultaneously ooze out of us as well. That's gross. But I want to take a second to thank Jacqueline and Gabriel and Roberta for offering their time. Thanks, Roberta, for having the idea to make this video in the first place. This is super helpful to me as I'm entering into this school year. So collaboration is huge. You folks have great attitudes, and there's plenty to be learned about this whole situation from all of your experiences. So thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it very much, and so do so many other people.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.